So for each of the precepts we have similar components. And if we look at the second precept, the precept concerning stealing, then again we have equivalent factors. The operant factor for stealing is that the thing which you steal should belong to someone else. So the thing which you take has someone who will miss it. If you are, for example, in the middle of a forest and you want to eat a nut from a tree in the forest, unless that forest belongs to someone who inspects it every day to find out how many nuts have disappeared, then you don't need to worry about whether you are stealing or not. Also, in the olden days, in the fields of crops, if you were hungry on your way home across the fields, there was an agreement that you could pick things from the fields to eat as you were going along. So for example, if you saw some strawberries in the field, you could eat some strawberries on the way home and no one would criticize you for that. But you mustn't take a bucket with you and fill up the bucket with strawberries. You must eat only as much as you can eat on the spot, not to take a bag of strawberries home for your friends as well. So you have to know about what is the custom for the ownership of different things. There are some things which are common property. Some people, when they go to their office, they think that because they are employed in a company, they may help themselves to all the paper clips and elastic bands and stamps, etc. from the office. In fact, that may not be true. Usually your employer didn't intend you to help yourself to all of these things. If you are in doubt, then you should ask first. And if you look at the words of the second precept, adinadana, not to take what has not been given. So it means that if someone owns it, then they are happy that you take it. So you don't break with that principle. So for the second precept, firstly you should, for something to be breaking the second precept, you must know that it doesn't belong to you and it belongs definitely to someone who is not you. And secondly, that there, not only must you know about it, there must really be such a person. So there is such a person who it belongs to, and you know about it. Thirdly, you have the intention to steal it, which means that you don't want to return it. You're not just borrowing it, but you're going to use it up, or you're not going to bring it back anymore. You're going to take it for yourself. If you have the intention to borrow something, then the intention is different. But often it's not good manners to take things which a person might need while you are using it. And then you need to put in some effort to steal that object. For example, if you want to steal a table, then you have to lift the table off the ground. If you want to steal a chicken, then you have to pick up the chicken off the ground and put it in the bag or whatever. So it needs some effort on your behalf. If you're the bank robber, then you need to pick the safe. And you must really, the point where you obtain that object is normally the point where it leaves the property of that owner. So the moment you take it outside their house, the moment you remove it from its original place, then that is said to be the point where you have officially broken the second precept. But these days it becomes rather vague about what we mean by stealing, because some things, they are not even concrete objects anymore, and they can still come within the definition of stealing. For example, If you take something which has a copyright, do you worry about it or not? In some countries they have copyright laws. For example, if you want to use a piece of music, well, you can always ask it if you're in doubt. And there are many, usually these days they make it very convenient for you to pay the copyright fee for something. Things like computer programs become more nebulous, but again there are many computer programs which are open software, they are freeware, which don't have an owner who is worried about the copyright on this software. I know some monks who are very strict, who they don't use Windows because they are afraid that Windows will be not the proper, the genuine identity. So they use Linux or something like that, because Linux is open software. So he can feel completely without guilt about using any of the software. But in Buddhist culture, normally it's not part of our tradition to limit the distribution of something which is good. If something is good, then we want to share it. We don't want to keep it back so that other people must pay us every time they have to use it. So often the whole law about copyright becomes rather, it seems like a little bit excessive sometimes for those in a Buddhist culture. Because if something's worth sharing, then it should be shared freely, we feel. When we come to the third precept, often people are in doubt about this because, again, there's a lot of rubbish which goes about in the name of Buddhist morality, especially concerning the third precept. But generally speaking, the third precept covers any form of sexual relationship outside marriage. But if you want to look at it in terms of its components, then the first thing, whether you know it or not, is that the man or woman who you are pairing up with is someone who is prohibited in one way or another. They may be prohibited because they are already married to someone else, or they may be prohibited because they are not already married to you, or they may be people such as monks or nuns who by their way of life are not allowed to indulge in sexual relations, or it may be people who are incarcerated as prisoners who are not allowed to have sexual relations. So if the other party is in any of these categories, then again the first criteria would be broken. Secondly, you need to have the intention to have a sexual relationship with them. Thirdly, there needs to be some effort made, such as removal of clothes, etc. And fourthly, there is a joining of sexual organs. These days there's a lot of variety within this field of behavior, and some people might say, well, there are many things which you can do which don't actually break this precept, but I think that you should look at your own intentions as the main guideline. A lot of people say that, well, if you have some sort of long-term commitment, it's okay for anyone. But anyone can say that at the time they had a long-term commitment and later they forgot about it. So I think we are better to follow what the Buddha actually said, which is what I've written down for you, rather than just to speculate about what the meaning might be in the present day.
So that's the new.
Oh, well, I don't know, but there's no reason why that sort of relationship should break this precept if it's a long-term relationship. If they only have one couple, but if they have many couples, if they see many people in the same way, then obviously there's going to be problems because there's jealousies, and someone is going to feel that they are less favored than another, and even by common sense you can understand that there's going to be a lot of problems. So really what the people think is freedom is actually adding up to a lot of problems for them in the future. They may ignore the feelings of their other partners, but I don't think that is a very good example of a humane behavior. If they're supposed to really like the other person, then why don't they treat them nicely too? Within Buddhism, sexual relations are primarily seen as the way by which new children can be brought into the world. And if you lose sight of that, then there is no end of elaborations which really lead to no great benefits for society.
For instance, family planning methods that people use have sexual relationship without intention to produce.
The way we understand it is that there's no problem with family planning. There's only a problem with abortion. Because
sexual relationship, there's no intention of producing
well,
someone.
as far as I know, in our temple anyway, the Vice Abbot was once asked about contraception, and he said that there's no harm in it. Because he said, if a visitor comes to your house and you don't let them in, then no harm is done. But if they're already in your house and you throw them out, then that is a way to make an enemy. So you can use this metaphor for the difference between contraception and abortion. Once a new life has come to grow within the woman and that is terminated, then it becomes a murder. It breaks the first precept. But normally people who practice the Dhamma will see beyond the mere entertainment value of a sexual relationship. Because they are trained to look for happiness in deeper places anyway. And especially for those people who keep 8 precepts on a regular basis, normally they can see beyond the superficial connection of a sexual relationship within a marriage. Really, it's responsible to use family planning. The main problem is unfaithfulness and lack of responsibility. These are the things which this third precept are trying to overcome.